Hello everybody and welcome back to another Compass Box Studio video. Today we're going to be exploring some drum mics and specifically condenser mic for toms. Now when you think about miking a drum kit, the traditional methodology of going about miking the toms and the snare and the kick are with dynamic mics. The SM57 is become the industry standard for snares. Mics like the Sennheiser 421 for toms, for example. You can even use like a D6 or a D112 for the floor tom as well. However, a lot of engineers actually experiment a lot when it comes to drum mics. For the snare top, for example, you'll typically find a 414, or you'll find an SM57 paired with like a 451 or another small diaphragm condenser. For the toms, you'll also find 414s. And lately, the Earthwork DK7, I believe it's called, is a full condenser set for the drums, including the overheads, including the kick mic, and including the toms and snare as well. So condenser mics for drums is not a new or novel concept. Now, aside from a few outliers, most drum kit sets are dynamic, and that includes the one that we have at the studio. We use the Audix DP7 kit, and that includes the D2 for the rack toms and the D4 for the floor tom. Amazing mics. I mean, they really bring a lot of bottom end, and since you can clamp these directly on the rim of the drums, it actually makes for a cleaner and neater overall setup, since you don't need extra stands for the tom mics. But I really wanted to explore what does it sound like to have a company that makes mics and condenser mics specifically for toms. Now, the Earthwork kit, unfortunately, is a little out of the budget when it comes to most home studios. They are pretty expensive, but they're also really, really good. Recently, Sontronics actually came up with a drum mic kit featuring small diaphragm condensers for the toms as well as the snare. So we're going to be trying out some of their DM1Ts, which is the small diaphragm condenser microphone designed for toms. As you can see, it comes in a neat little package, and since it's a small diaphragm condenser, it's actually a really low profile small diaphragm condenser, so you can get it into strange angles. If you've got a drummer who's got, let's say, a lot of cymbals and you can't really get the height that you really want for it, this will fit in perfectly in those spaces. As far as features of the mics are concerned, they're actually pretty standard small diaphragm condensers. The one good thing that it comes with is a 10 dB pad. So if you're running into a hot source, I mean, these are condensers, so they're going to be running much hotter than regular dynamic mics. So we've got 3 DM1Ts, and we're going to be using that for both the rack toms as well as the floor tom. And the pad was engaged in all 3 sources on our preamps. The methodology for today is going to be pretty simple. We've got Prithul Chauhan, who's come again to help us out with these drum videos. He's going to be playing this DW design series with coated heads. I believe they're the Evans G2 on them. And we're miking each tom with 2 mics. One with the standard Audix D2 for the rack toms and the D4 for the floor tom, and with the Sontronics DM1Ts. This means we can get the same performance into both mics and all gain matched. So we'll start off by doing a simple A/B test on each of the drums, so the toms individually as well as the floor tom. After the individual isolated samples, we'll do a couple of tom rolls so you can hear what they sound like in terms of the Audix dynamic mics and the Sontronics condenser mics as well. And right in the end, we'll do like a little groove sample where Prithul will be playing a groove but adding a lot of tom fills so you can hear what they sound like in context of the larger mix. The signal chain is pretty simple. All 6 mics, so the 3 Audix mics as well as the 3 condenser Sontronic mics, are going to the Universal Apollo X8P without any of the unison plugins on. So this is the clean, transparent pre. We don't want any coloration of the pre affecting the perception of the sound. There's no EQ or compression or post work of any kind, aside maybe for a little bit of post correction when it comes to gain, to make sure that they're all kind at the same level. For the final two samples, which is the tom rolls as well as the full kit, again, there's going to be a very simple mix involving only balancing and panning. I want you guys to hear what these mics sound like rather than worrying too much about what it sounds like in context of the mix. So we'll start with the samples. I hope you guys enjoy it. So what did you guys think? Please write below what you thought sounded better. If you think there's a better use case for one of the mics over the other, I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say about it. For me personally, I actually really like the Sontronics for the rack toms. They have more of an attack. They have a slightly more full-bodied sort of hi-fi sound compared to the D2s. When you hear them consecutively sort of back to back, you kind of hear like the Audix mics have a low-pass filter, while the condenser mics have an extended range, especially in the top end. Weirdly, for the flow tom, I preferred the D4. If you guys think the Sontronics sounded better over there, please write below. But I think there's definitely a use case for the Sontronics, but the D4 seem to have a lot more low mids and low end compared to the Sontronics. I don't know if that's because of the proximity effect, because it might have been a little closer, or if it was because of the angle of how we placed it. This was just the first time we were using it, so I'm sure the more I use it, the better I'll be able to figure out how to best utilize it. But the D4 sounded like the more complete flow tom. I did boost about 100, 120 on the Sontronics to kind of get that, beefy low end, and then it kind of sounded like a more complete flow tom for me. But just completely raw, I prefer the D4 for the flow tom. If you like the content we're making, please do consider subscribing. It really helps us out a lot, not only when it comes to the live sessions, which I'm sure you guys have already seen, but to do a lot of these videos, the tutorials and the engineering, reviewing mics and figuring out what they sound like on different sources. It takes up a lot of our time to, write one of these episodes and shoot it. We do this all in-house ourselves. So do consider subscribing if you like the content. Thank you. If you have some thoughts and comments of what we should do next, especially when it comes to drums, do comment below. We read pretty much every single comment and respond to as many as we can to get ideas from you guys. So until next time.